Alright, what's up? Got a quick video, just wanted to kind of show off some of the specific mechanics of Hexblast, and specifically Hexblast being used with traps and ways to apply curses and some other nonsense that I've been testing over the last few days. Since this is looking like it's going to be my league starter build as a Hexblast trap poison sab. Nothing in this is really going to show kind of the power of the skill. This character is not really actually a poison build or anything, it's just a random stab I had, and the skill's way weaker than it will be, but mostly want to show like the curse application stuff and the differences in different ways to do curses and just how things work functionally, because none of that should be changing next league. But the main idea is, for me, what I'm going to be relying on heavily is curse on hit, which I will we'll run through with a bit of low damage. I'm just going to use Blood Aqueducts a bunch. If you have... I have a blasphemy on as well, let me turn that off. If you have curse on hit, and you throw multiple traps at once, you're pretty much guaranteed to get your good AoE explosions. As you can see here. Every toss, basically, when I throw 3 traps, the first trap, Hexblast, does not do any AoE whatsoever if the target's not cursed, if it can't find a cursed enemy, which kind of works nicely for traps because due to that, it seems to have some sort of auto-targeting where it will prioritize targeting a cursed enemy if there's one close by to where like the trap triggers. So it's pretty good at finding that cursed enemy, but the first trap out of these 3 that trigger, they all trigger at basically the same time, but they're just still in order. One of them does no AoE, and then the next 2 do the AoE. And it works pretty well. This character has quite a bit of increased area of effect right now, so you can see it's covering a pretty large area. And it's... with curse on hit, it's just like a trap build. I throw my traps, I don't have to worry about cursing. And stuff gets hit, and if the character actually had damage, I think I'm using a level 1 gem even right now. Yeah. There's a 3 link on a level 1 gem, so I don't have damage. But functionally it works. And if I take the curse on hit ring off, and I turn on blasphemy, it's pretty similar, it's just you have to get close to the enemies. But I think it doesn't work quite as well with traps, at least with like cluster trap. Because it seems that blasphemy has like a slight delay before it reapplies. It's not instantaneous. I think blasphemy only updates every so often, like 5 or maybe 10 times a second. So if you have a bunch of things going off instantly, it's not finding them all. Like I could probably take this cluster traps out and notice like no difference in the damage. Yeah. So blasphemy on its own I don't think is reliable unless you want to do a setup where you're only throwing 1 trap at a time, which especially for single target loses a lot of your overall damage, because for single target you can run swift assembly, which is in most cases close to a 60% more damage multiplier, which is just huge for one support. So I don't want to rely on blasphemy. I want to find a curse on hit item as quick as possible. If you aren't able to get one, like if you're an SSF and you just want to get some Hexblast trap build rolling, blasphemy is still an option. It works. I don't think it works as well. And then you also have to use up reservation for it, but it is functional, so it's fine, I guess. There is one kind of exception to this. If you play hit based, which I might switch my character to hit based late game with like really good gear and stuff and go crit once I can get a lot of crit damage and all that. I put in some like damage supports and I put in a higher level hex blast and everything, and then I put my curse on hit ring back on. You end up kind of needing blasphemy because the curse on hit strategy essentially breaks if you literally one-shot the mobs with the unempowered Hex Blast. You can see I'm getting no AoE because the first Hex Blast is just straight up one-shotting and then there's no cursed enemies. Instead of getting AoE, I'm just one-shotting 3 mobs. So if your hit damage is too high, which it will be if you go a hit crit based build eventually, you'll get damage too high with good gear. Curse on hit alone is not enough. And then even blasphemy alone is kind of not ideal either, So you'd kind of want both, I think, a curse on hit and a blasphemy. Once I do this, the hit works just fine. You just have to be somewhat near the mobs, or at least one of the mobs. When you throw the traps, you just throw traps and run through. And you'd probably have like a quartz blast to run through easier, but once you get this setup going again, it's good. Like you can just kind of zoom around and you would probably look somewhat like this in maps. But something to keep note of if you hit too hard, which if that gets to be the case even with a poison build, it's fine. You can just, I don't think I have the gem on me. Yeah, I do. You can just plop in a deadly ailment support in place of something because it gives 80% less damage with hits. I don't think it's going to be necessary because you have to one-shot with the unempowered Hexblast, which unempowered does like half the damage because it doesn't get 100% more hit damage. So it's probably not going to happen. But if it does on the poison one, you probably just put in deadly ailments and then your hits aren't doing anything. You don't have to worry about it again. But once you kind of figure out what way you want to set your curses up, like I said, for my poison setup, I want to just get curse on hit, which I'm going to try to get corrupted gloves because I think that's going to be the most reliable way to get some form of curse on hit. It doesn't even matter what curse it is, just something early to just get it activated, and then I'll have a second curse that'll probably be self-cast with the new cursed ground support for extra single target. That's currently what I'm planning. And it should work good. The damage in POB looks pretty high. I haven't even finished a POB yet, so I actually don't have one to share right now, really. But the, like, initial kind of looks to make sure it was viable was pretty high damage. I think with, like, not even crazy gear, just kind of, like, gear that you would more or less be expected to have by, you know, low to mid 90s level. You could probably push upwards of 10 million DPS on a hardcore character, which is pretty damn good. So, pretty excited for it. And then I think I wanted one other thing to show, which was Sunblast. Also, I could show this too. Unfortunately, Mark of Submission does not work. Because of the fact that Mark of Submission is a cursed gem within the item, whereas like this ring is just the item has a curse on hit attribute, affix, whatever. There's some weird technical stuff that makes this Mark of Submission not work with traps. So if I turn off my blasphemy, I will no longer be able to curse on hit. I mean, I'm doing too much damage anyway, but with the other ring you could see the temp chains pulsing. This just doesn't work, period. But the other thing I was going to show was Sunblast, which I don't think I would use for mapping. It just seems a bit clunky because of the way the delay works, right? Where you throw the traps and just nothing happens for a while. But for single target, like there's no denying Sunblast is just insane. And again, thanks to the part of Hexblast where it kind of prioritized targets towards cursed enemies, it should do a pretty good job of finding something to cast on. I think here. Is there a mob back here? No, they all died. We'll go up here. I don't think I even need to throw necessarily at, like if the mobs move during the delay, yeah, you can see it's still like, the traps were kind of close and they still target at it. That's like the one drawback of Sunblast. If your trap just AoE around itself, sometimes the enemy might move and cause it to whiff. But since Hexblast has a little bit of targeting, and you don't actually need to be right on top of the mobs, it should work pretty fine, and it'll add a ton of single target. But yeah, just something I wouldn't want personally, I don't think, to use for mapping, because like I could not be bothered to wait. It's sketchy to wait on trash mobs, like have damage on that much of a delay, and I don't think it'll be necessary, but it could be a gear swap for big boss damage, which is cool. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover. Hexblast traps looking pretty decent on paper. Functionally seems fine. I'm pretty excited to try it out and have at least something new to tinker with, because the patch notes this league didn't leave a lot for me personally to be excited about trying new things. At least to start on. I think there could be some cool stuff with like the buffed uniques, and there's a lot of good new uniques. There will be new things to experiment with, but as far as like league start build stuff goes, not a lot. So I'm glad I found something that's been cool to tinker with, and I'll get to experiment as I go in the league. But yeah, that's all I got. Just wanted to kind of show off the mechanics of the Hexblast and the various ways to get curses and all that. Thanks for watching. See ya.